If you're struggling with HubSpot, you have it, you know you could be doing more, but you don't quite know how to get there, the place that we recommend first taking a look is with lead scoring. So today, we're going to talk about what is lead scoring, what does it actually look like in HubSpot, and what are some concrete steps you can take to get started with lead scoring. So let's dive in. In terms of what is lead scoring, we figured, rather than hear it from me, why not hear it from the CRM that you all know and love? So HubSpot defines lead scoring as a process of assigning value, often in the form of points, to each lead in your CRM to evaluate the likelihood of them becoming a customer. Pretty straightforward. People do stuff, give them points. They're probably more likely to be nurtured and become a customer. So that's how HubSpot defines it. So what I want to do today is just show you, okay, well, how do you actually do that in HubSpot? And not only how do you actually do that, but once you have lead scoring set up, how does that actually help you? How do you start using it in practice to drive growth? So the first thing that actually might come as a surprise is when you start doing lead scoring, you don't start in HubSpot. You actually start in a spreadsheet. So right here, we've got a snapshot of what some lead scoring criteria can look like. Now you've got your actions on the left side, and then you've got your points on the right side. And the points are what you would assign based on an action that a person takes in your website or within your marketing. So at the top, we've got if someone has over 5 web page views, they might get assigned 2 points. If they have over 10 website views, they get assigned 5 points. We've got marketing email in here as well. So doing this in a spreadsheet, although it looks, somewhat basic and standard, actually gives you a really good holistic view and snapshot of the lead scores you're setting up. So once you get into HubSpot, it starts getting a little more sophisticated and complicated. All right, so when we're thinking about lead scoring criteria, there's actually 2 big buckets we want to focus on. What I see a lot of customers focusing on with lead scoring is engagement. How are people visiting my website? What emails are they clicking on? What ads? How are they engaging with your marketing? Great, super important to focus on. But what that doesn't look at is the who. And this is something we talk about a lot with our marketing. Who is actually doing that engaging? Because if you have Joe Schmo from down the way with a ton of engagement and clicking on your website, but that's actually not your ICP, that's really important to know. So
what's an ICP, Tucker? Can you define that?
An ICP is an ideal customer profile. So people should always be building out their target personas so they know which different ICPs, which different customer profiles they're trying to target. So we've done that here at Aimtel, looking at what's the ideal company size that we are trying to go after? What are the job titles that really make sense, that are our ideal buyers? What sort of tech are they using? So you really want to map that out first. Once you've done that, then you can start loading that into HubSpot and assessing, okay, are these the right people that we're trying to go after? So engagement score, profile score. As we're in HubSpot, we start looking at things like engagement score and start populating this. So you can see over on the left-hand side, if someone has filled out a form to get our B2B demand gen guide, they're getting 10 points. If they sign up for our newsletter, they're getting 5 points. But you can also add negative scores in lead scoring, which I think is really helpful. If you think about negative keywords that you might use in Google Ads, it's kind of the same principle. So if someone hasn't been active in your CRM for 365 days, you can assign them a negative 20 points. So that way their score gets kind of downgraded and they're not popping up at the top of the leads that you want to be looking at. Additionally, things you can look at, and this comes more on the sales side, is looking at events as well, or meetings booked. So if someone books a meeting with you or me, Janet, they automatically get assigned 30 points. If someone attended, we used our lead scores for our HubSpot inbound mixer that we hosted in 2024, or our dinner that we hosted. If someone attended those, that's a huge indication that, they're someone we want to keep talking to. They'd get a score of 30 points as well. And so I think when we talk about aligning marketing and sales, lead scoring is a great way to do that, because you can look at marketing activities, but also sales activities and score both of those things to get a more holistic picture of how someone is engaging with both your marketing and
Yeah.
sales.
The other thing you can go pretty deep too, because you can start to analyze the intent of the lead. So for
Yeah.
example, say folks signed up for an event,
Mhm.
they saw they had the intention versus like engagement, right? Like deeper engagement, that they actually attended the event,
Yeah.
or that maybe they followed your newsletter, but versus someone who is actually replying to the email. They subscribe, but they're actually replying consistently. So there's
Right.
like there's ways that you can, or what they're engaging with and how much content they're consuming. I think that's an important point of this, is that you want to show that, back to your point, Tucker, of like the engagement level, and do they fit in that target audience or customer that you're trying to attract.
Exactly. Yeah, we're looking at some pretty basic stuff right here, but as you know, it's good to start with the basics, but then you can get really
Right.
sophisticated and customize it by different buyer types and stuff like that. Speaking of which, we also have a profile score set up, so you can see, and these are just some examples, but if they're from a certain industry, you can assign them a score. If they've got a company size that fits, again, within your ICP, you can assign them a score. Conversely, we don't usually go after, if you're a company that doesn't go after small startups, you might want to assign a negative score when there's a company size that's really small. This is similar to kind of LinkedIn targeting parameters you'd set up. So if you have anybody who's a campaign manager on your team, this is they're really, I think, probably well conditioned to also do lead scoring for you.
So just to clarify, then the negative score in both points, or like both areas, it helps you pretty much automate that level of engagement.
Exactly. Because as we'll see in just a moment, I'll show you a dashboard of what this looks like. And when you start looking at your leads and you look at them through the lens of engagement and profile, you want to have the best leads, the leads who are most likely to buy, scored up at the top, and the leads that you want to buy from. So if you have a bunch of people from startups, that aren't really part of your ICP, you want to make sure that that negative score is getting applied so that they're bumped further down your list. So here we are at our lead engagement dashboard. I think, when we say lead engagement and lead scoring, people want to know, well, okay, what does this actually look like, and how does that actually help me? So what we're looking at now is we're in HubSpot looking at a lead engagement dashboard we've built. We've blurred out contacts and companies to, protect the names and people involved. But, I think people are pretty familiar with a deal pipeline. When you get to the sales stage and sales teams are analyzing deals, that makes total sense. But what about for leads who are more top of the funnel, where a deal hasn't quite been established yet, but you still want to understand, okay, who are the leads that are engaging the most? Who should I be going after? What companies are engaging? That's really important, especially if you're a company with multiple business units, especially if you're a company with multiple products and you have lots of different types of leads. It's really important that you're organizing your leads in a way that sales and marketing can not only see, but take action on. So just to go kind of line by line on this, or column by column, over on the farthest left side, we've got our contacts. Those are obviously the names of the people who are engaging, and you've got their company name. Now, important to know with contacts, it's all blurred out, but those, each blue name is clickable. So an SDR can go in there, click in, pull up the contact, see exactly how they've engaged, and then send a personalized outreach to that person. We've done that a lot with sales teams, and they find this very helpful, making their lives easier so they don't have to go and hunt around and say, who should I go after? We say, hey, here's a dashboard of the people. You can click right in, see what they've done, and take action. And then we've also got their job title, obviously really important so you know who you're talking to. But when we look in the middle, this is where I really wanted to hone in on. I'm going to look at what's inside our red line. So what we mapped out inside of HubSpot was our engagement score and then our profile score. So right away, you can start to see the people who are engaged the most, but you can also next to that look at their profile and say, all right, are their demographics in line with who I'm trying to go after? So actually, if we go all the way down to, I think, maybe the third to the bottom, you can see someone with an engagement score of 44, but a profile score of 0. That's a good example of someone who might be really engaged, but probably isn't the right fit. And so that's really good
Right.
to
But they can
know.
still be like in your community consuming content. I think that's totally fine, but it just gives you
Yeah.
like, okay, let's not hit them with a bunch of direct maybe sales emails and
Yeah,
putting
not
them
that
into
quick
that
demo.
sequence.
Totally, but that's a great point. They might be really good as a brand advocate. They might be good
Right.
for referrals. So it's good to kind
Right.
of understand. So the segment, they might be a really good influencer. Maybe they're not the decision
Right.
maker, but they might be able to help influence. Um, the other thing I wanted to really call out here, Janet, that you and I use a lot is right to the left of engagement score is priority. And you and I have talked a lot lately about how do we balance automation, but then the human touch? And this comes in,
Mhm.
I think, prospecting as well. We have gone in and automated our, scores for how people are engaging with your marketing and sales, what their ICP is like. But at the same time, there's always going to be a manual aspect to assessing leads and lead quality. So you and I will use this field of priority to say, okay, well, what about the quality of the interactions we're having? Based on those meetings or based on those engagements, should we prioritize this person? And this is something that we see sales teams do too. So it kind of is just another kind of lens that you can use to assess and kind of prioritize the leads you want to go after. I don't know if there's anything that comes up for you when we talk about balancing the human touch and AI and using these tools.
Yeah. I think to that point is that, there's best practices to follow, but you should also really need to understand like how your team wants to work together between marketing and sales and how you want to collaborate and, you know, keep this data like accurate and representative of the ways that you work together. Not to
Yeah,
like over customize it, but I think that's one of the areas where we're like the priority fields kind of like we define it for ourselves so that we can just have that extra data point to just allow us to like hone in. And we have other dashboards that just like let us like kind of click in and like dive deeper into these specific areas.
right.
So it just, yeah, I think that's just a good point of where you're developing the lead scoring and it pretty much just gives you this like framework of defining those like routines and rituals and ways of working together.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think just to round it out, just to paint the picture of how this kind of dashboard and lead scoring in general could be further applied to different businesses. We've worked with companies that play in a lot of different verticals. They might have 5 or 6 different verticals they're going after: healthcare, HR, education, agriculture. What we've done is set up lead engagement dashboards for each of those different verticals. Sometimes it's even one big dashboard and you can look at each vertical down the row. And that's really helpful to know, okay, who are my top leads when I'm in agriculture? Who are my top leads from school systems? So that's one way you can do this. Another, as I kind of alluded to before, is if you have a lot of different products too, you can start to categorize and organize your leads based on product interest as well.
Mhm.
I think so many companies, we talk to that are just like, I've got so many contacts in HubSpot and I don't know what to do with it. And even worse, sometimes my sales team is starting to kind of become averse to HubSpot because they're not seeing the value. They feel the pressure or the responsibility to organize the leads rather than having it organized for them. So these are just some easy steps you can take so that your sales team is like, okay, here are all my leads. Here they are, organized by most engaged. Now I know who to prioritize without having to hunt
Right.
through everything myself.
Yeah, it's like find the gold in your CRM is what you need to do.
Find the gold in your
Like
CRM.
there's instead of adding more and more, I think sometimes we're always just looking outward, trying to find more and more people to hit, but actually there's a lot. This is a really great way to show. We have actually a lot of people that are like potentially ready for us to talk directly to them about our product or our services.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think for marketers too, sometimes they are the ones who are the burden of justifying the value, the investment of HubSpot is on them. Leadership and sales is kind of like, why are we using this? What am I really getting out of this? We found this as a great way to help justify that. Like, hey,
Right.
the reason you're using this is because you can do this. Boom. I can show you all the leads. I can show you exactly how they're engaging. You can make it very easy and actionable for others to kind of jump in as well. So yeah, this is
Awesome.
definitely a great way to start.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing, Tucker. That's awesome.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. This was great.